Hey everybody, welcome to Gaming Without Parole. I'm Mike Zeller.
And I'm Bryan Paul.
He sure is.
I am indeed.
Yes.
I apologize for that. If there's something I can do about it in the future, I'll be certain to change it.
Well, we'll hold you to that.
Nope.
So this is our episode 2 of our relaunch of Gaming Without Parole. We're definitely not banking 2 right at the moment. Nope, this is totally a different day from the other one.
Definitely different clothes than we were wearing last week.
Yes, absolutely. They just look very similar. We're like cartoon characters. We just wear the same thing.
I like that.
Like when in the old Nickelodeon show, when Doug opened his closet and it was just all the same. Did you see that episode where he opens his closet and it's all the same exact sweater vest and shorts? And
I think Simpsons did that too.
Did they? Yeah.
Doug was a great show.
It was.
Patty Mayonnaise.
Yeah.
And what was the band they liked? The Beats?
The Beats, yeah.
Which
I think is an actual...
Maybe.
I mean, I don't think they were called that, but I think that group was an actual band.
Oh. Even better.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
So, we talk about video games here, right?
That's what we do.
Yep.
And pancakes.
And pancakes. Have you had good pancakes? I haven't had...
You know what this sounds real strange, but you know what my favorite pancakes of all time are?
White chocolate chip?
McDonald's.
Really?
Something about those big fluffy McDonald's pancakes in the styrofoam containers. Now, this is how long it's been. They might not come in styrofoam containers anymore.
Probably not.
But you get the plasticware, and you cut into them, and you cut into
right through it, and
yep.
leave a big syrupy stain on the table.
There's something about that smell, and the butter, and the syrup. Everything that they give you in that little package it all adds up to the best pancake experience ever.
I used to go out for brunch all the time on Sundays with somebody. Now I don't, and I'm sad. But I'd get pancakes, and they were great.
With somebody.
Yes.
Brunch is a real relationship thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to like getting drunk during brunch. It's an excuse to drink Bloody Marys and mimosas at noon.
I mean, that's one way to do it. I would say the traditional is usually coffee, but yeah,
that's boring.
Alcohol. That's.
You know what? You know what we didn't discuss is the woman we just ran into in my elevator.
Did you want to? I didn't know you wanted to talk about that.
I mean, it's hard not to talk about it. It's hard not to think about it.
Yeah.
Out of her mind. Out of her mind. Like, what did she first say to us?
It was don't drink before 2 p.m.
But she was already drunk.
Clearly.
And it was definitely before 2 p.m.
Although, I didn't smell it until halfway through the conversation, and we were in an elevator with her for a while.
Yeah, slow elevator.
Yeah.
And she said you have to you can't start drinking before General Hospital.
Yeah, because if you're too drunk, you're not going to be able to follow all the twists and turns.
Yeah, because the stories move so quickly.
I know. They're definitely not like a daily comic strip where.
Have you ever watched a soap opera? Like we got into one?
I mean, no. I mean, way back when I was in probably middle school or something, I'd be sick and at home. Like, there's nothing else on during the day. So,
for like a year, I watched One Life to Live.
Okay,
I think that was the one. It was with an ex in Tennessee. Super into it, and I watched it every single day, and I kid you not, the storyline progresses 1 minute a day.
Yeah.
1 minute. Like, you see the same shit happen every single day. You can miss weeks and not really miss anything at all.
Yeah. There was, I was in a...
It's kind of like Uncharted 4.
I was in a car, I was in a body shop one day, and they had a ratty TV on with a soap opera on it, and yeah, that was totally... Like, the whole episode was just people staring at each other while the music gradually increased in intensity, and then at the very end of the episode, somebody, ran in and punched somebody else in the face, and it was like, man,
What a cliffhanger.
Exactly.
And then, but the funny thing is, if you were to watch the next episode the next day, it wouldn't be a continuation.
Right.
It would be a lot of recap of what happened the day before.
Yeah.
Real strange. I don't know how people get addicted to these things.
So this is the Soapcast, where we talk about soap operas and soap that you clean yourself with.
I forgot people were watching.
I like Irish Spring. That's my favorite. It's cheap and it doesn't smell like shit.
I use body wash normally, and I ran out not that long ago, like a month ago. And right before I got in the shower, I realized, luckily, that there was nothing in there for me to clean myself with. And I looked through, in cabinets, there's always like that shit that you put in there when you first
You're
moved
taking
in.
like the hand soap from the sink and like
Right? Well, that's the thing. They were in the very, very back of the cabinet below the sink. There were these 3 little boxes stacked up, and they were 3 bars of Irish Springs. And I was like, oh, I didn't know I had bar soap. I've lived here for 8 years. Didn't know there was bar soap in the apartment.
Nice.
And I used that for a couple weeks. Loved it.
Yeah.
Bar soap is totally underrated.
Yeah, I use the body wash for a long time too because it's so cheap and it's easy to move around because you don't have to put it in anything. It's already in a bottle.
It's like you can really get it.
yeah. But I think bar soap's the way to go.
Bar soap dries out my skin, which people don't like, but I'm Italian and I'm real greasy. And so the drier I can get my skin, the better off I am. Yeah. Now, if only there was soap that would get rid of this useless hair, I'd be perfect.
No such luck, unfortunately.
This all started with pancakes.
It did.
Real strange.
And it all started originally with video games. So
this is a retro video game podcast.
Yes.
Not last week's though.
No, last week we had discussed about, now that Bryan's got his multi-family of podcasts, that his Midnight's Gamecast, tune in, was going to be more like the cutting edge.
Click the link.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to put a link.
Yeah. One of those little isn't that so cool when they put the clickable links when they embed them in the video?
Yeah, I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, I don't know how to do that either. It's pretty neat. I'm always impressed when I see it.
It would take me all of 10 seconds to learn, but then I'd have to learn and then do it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do that this week. That'll be my goal for the week.
That's a good goal.
Click that link. Right there.
We ended up talking about PlayStation 4.
What a great conversation!
It was a good conversation though, because we haven't really gotten together much since Gaming Without Parole original ended.
The reason we met was to do a podcast in the first place.
Yeah.
So hanging out outside of the podcast
just feels wrong.
Yeah, really. If we're not filming what we're doing, then I'm not sure what we're doing.
That's what I always said to my ex when we'd get it on. I don't know why we're doing this if we're not filming it for YouTube.
I need to use that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Xtube.
Yeah, Xtube. Yeah, PornTube, Pornhub. I don't look at porn.
Those are all things.
Oh, okay.
PornTube,
right.
Xtube, Pornhub. You named all the.
That's amazing,
right? You named all the pornography
I've never
sites
been to any of those sites, as far as I know.
Sure.
Not intentionally.
Just named them all off the top of your head, real quick, like.
Oh well, my secret shame is out.
It's the Porncast.
Exactly. We talked about we made it clean and then we made it real dirty.
I gotta brush my teeth.
Yeah, so we said we're going to talk about retro games.
Yeah.
And one of the things, you and I are both, we're not just retro game players, we also tend to be retro game collectors. As if Joby was here to turn the camera, we could see the host of NES games on the wall. And
it's real messy around here.
But one of the things that we've both been noticing, I really started to... I've always kept my games, and I keep them in pretty good condition, but I really started to get into collecting games, basically trying to relive my childhood and find the things that I didn't play when I was a kid towards the end of college, and once I got my first job and had a real, paycheck with disposable income and everything. And we both noticed that that was in the early 2000s.
Yep.
There has been a pretty dramatic shift in about, I'd say, the last 8 to 10 years as far as retro gaming goes. It seems like the prices have gone up a lot.
Real bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny, our local video game comic book store, That's Entertainment, click the link. No, we're not doing that. They don't pay us.
Someday.
One day, yeah. There used to be a point, and back when I was in high school, so a long time ago now, half my life ago, I'd go, and there would be nobody there. And you'd wonder how this place stays in business. You think you're their sole customer or something. And it's a big store. It's like a big warehouse almost. It's not a small store.
It's the biggest in the Northeast as far as I know.
Well, aren't we lucky?
We are lucky.
But that's not the case anymore. Every time I go in, it's fucking mobbed.
Yeah.
And these are not this isn't like prime time. This is like middle of the day. When kids are supposed to be in school, there's like families there, and there's kids.
Horrible truancy problem and
really is
in Worcester.
And I love and even though it annoys me because kids are awful, I love listening to the conversations that these families are having with each other. Like, what are they there for? Are they there for Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Genesis? In what I've been noticing recently, the big new market. So snatch all these games up before they're gone. The N64.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's going up.
And the reason, and I think this kind of like leads into one of the many reasons why collecting has become more expensive.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you're trying to relive your childhood, right? N64 wasn't my childhood.
Right,
It was
yeah.
my early teenage years. People who are slightly younger than us,
Yep.
the N64 was their childhood. You know, if you're 25 right now, you grew up, your first console was an N64.
Yep.
And so now people, for the first time, are becoming collectors, going back, reliving their childhood, trying to find N64 games.
Yep.
They're about to get real fucking expensive.
Yeah. Well,
There's not a lot of good ones.
No.
So you pay a lot of money for a lot of garbage.
It's funny because, you know, we've talked about this a lot off the air, which total waste.
Total waste. Should have been filming.
Yeah.
Could have been up to episode 3 by now.
I know. But, you know, we've talked about, like, everything's getting more expensive. So I spent a while doing a little bit of research, and that's actually not true. But I think it ties into what you're saying, because if you go to, like, Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, even stuff like Genesis, that all is going up and has increased in price a lot. But if you get much higher than that, the prices, you know, they might have gone up a little bit or stayed steady, or in some cases, if you look at PlayStation 2 prices, a lot of those have gone down, actually. So I think it really is a case of when an age group that grew up playing these games hits adulthood, they all want to go back and get the games either that they played as a kid or that they never had a chance to play, and that's what's driving the price up. It's as soon as these, you know, people get a job and disposable income, they want to go back, and the collecting market or the secondary market takes advantage of that and really jacks up the price. You know, I wrote a few things down. You look at, like, you know, Little Samson, which was a game that back in even the late 2000s you could get for about $50, which was the high end of Nintendo Entertainment System games. Average price now seems to be like close to $1,000.
Yeah.
And that's for a loose copy.
Yeah.
That's bananas.
Now, but that skyrocketed recently, right? Like, because I want to say 5 years ago,
spiked. Yeah, it was about $100 for a few years.
Yeah, like this is just getting out of control.
Yeah, but if you look at, and again, I got this all from pricecharting.com, so I'm not exactly sure what their criteria are, but if you look at original PlayStation games or even Xbox games, the average price for secondhand copies has gone down by a few dollars at least.
Okay, but if my prediction is correct, and N64 is the console now that we're about to see a spike in because of the age group, then it's only going to be a few more years.
Yeah,
until
give it another 6 to 10 years, and then.
I mean, but then obviously there are exceptions to every rule.
Right.
Like Rule of Rose on PlayStation 2 is super fucking expensive.
Yeah, and you also look at something like the Sega Saturn or the Dreamcast, which were not super popular systems and are also not quite in that range yet, but those games have gone up. I looked at was it GigaWing 2? That was not like that. I mean, that was a slightly more obscure game. It's a shooter. If you've ever played that atrocity Mobile Light Force for the PlayStation, that poor GigaWing has gotten kicked around a lot. Mobile Light Force, the original, is actually the original GigaWing. So
is it?
It is,
Okay.
yeah. So GigaWing 2 is the kind of official release of that series. But back in 2007, that game was selling for about $20. And these are all loose prices, so about $20. Last year, the average price was $90.
It's crazy.
So there are certain systems that I think are more collector-focused systems, like the Saturn, the Dreamcast, the TurboGrafx, that I think are so obscure that the people that they're attracting are just the collectors, which again the secondary market takes advantage of.
The TurboGrafx, if we can take a sidebar here for a moment. The prices on TurboGrafx games have become ludicrous. When I say ludicrous, I mean games that you couldn't give away 5 years ago. Boxee Boy, Crater Maze.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Like these are
just
games,
real shit.
right? I mean, they're not bad games. Like they're real basic.
Yeah.
They don't push the system. They've never been touted as shining examples of what the system is capable of or why you should own one. They certainly weren't even hidden gems. They were just filler.
Yeah.
They were filler for any collection. Now, I know I looked up a couple of these. So Crater Maze actually falls into an interesting category where you can get a loose hue card for $25. Or you can buy a brand new copy in cellophane for $125. But there's nothing in the middle.
Yeah.
They are that hard to find where you're either stuck spending a lot of money for a complete copy or spending too much money for a single card.
Yeah.
And if you're like me, who wants something in the middle, who just wants the case with the spine and the card, you can't find that. It just doesn't exist. There's no one selling that because I think most people are like me, and that's what they're looking for. You know, they don't need anything in cellophane, and they don't want just a loose card.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because it really is more of a collector's system.
Yeah.
Like you don't have many people who are just like, oh, remember Bonk from when we were kids? Like the people that are buying Bonk are people that want a nice condition in the case copy for their collection.
Now. $50.
Wow.
They were $10 games when I was collecting for the first time for the system. Yeah, and anytime I say a price, like I am talking about not loose cards for the most part. Generally talking about with the instructions in the case. Boxee Boy, $70.
Yeah.
$70 for Boxee Boy. What the fuck? I'm glad I have two.
Well,
if you want to buy a Boxee Boy, click this link down below.
Right to the eBay link.
Right.
That's what this should turn into. Just you pimping your eBay stuff. You had said you wanted to clean up, so this can be like we just chat. Well, because that happens. When you see of these big YouTubers that do like retro gaming.
Actually, what I wanted to talk about.
Oh,
next.
yeah.
Yeah.
That where they these prominent YouTubers or a couple of other sites that talk about this kind of stuff, even hardcore gaming, I think when games show up on their sites and people chat them up, they go up in price on eBay because everybody sees it and they're like, oh, I do want to play Toxic Crusaders for the NES.
Yeah, the guys from Cinemassacre, who most known for the Angry Video Game Nerd.
Okay,
that's them. So it's James Rolfe and Mike Matei. They played every Monday. They play a random old game, not normally an expensive game, just something they pull off the shelf. A couple months ago, they played Sky Kid. Remember Sky Kid? Vaguely. It was a $3 game. $3. Like you couldn't give this shit away, right? eBay, $5 maximum free shipping. It went overnight to becoming a $40 game. $40. Now, in all fairness, that was a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And I looked it up today. Dropped slightly down, $25 to $30. I don't know if that trend will continue. Like once it spiked, and people tried to buy it up real quick, like the price will come down. But I think it's irreversible to a certain extent.
Well, I will say I was reading a book recently that had a couple chapters where they were talking about economic bubbles, and that is absolutely what's going on here. I mean, there is to a certain extent, once all of these copies are gone, there aren't more being made, so there is that angle. And
there are more collectors every day.
Yeah.
In all fairness, I mean, we're not dying out yet.
Yeah. But they did talk about in this particular book how every single time there's an economic bubble, every single time, I mean, it always bursts eventually. And so I got to thinking about that, and they talked about the housing bubble, this, the stock market crash in the 1920s, all of these things where prices just got out of control. And it did make me think, nowadays the people who are buying up, the NES and the Super Nintendo games and that kind of stuff, they're all the people like our age that grew up doing that.
Yeah.
Well, these are also the people that are, having children now. They're buying homes. They're, getting more invested in their community and that kind of stuff. I don't know if this disposable income continues forever, or even just, we've talked about it takes a lot of time to keep on top of this stuff. It takes a lot of time of like monitoring eBay and going to thrift stores
all week.
Yeah, and like, when you have 2 kids, you don't have as much time to do that. And
then once they get to college age level,
it's college. Yeah, tell me about it. College, man. I used to work at a college, and I remember when I attended the same college, tuition was about $30,000 to $33,000 a year.
Insane.
When I left, when I left after I had been working there for a few years, it was like almost $60,000. And this is within a decade, so I can't imagine what it costs now. And that, this was a slightly more expensive school, but this was not like an Ivy League place or anything. Yeah, so I think, and the reality is too, because there have been other collectible markets where they're not making anymore, like baseball cards. Baseball cards back in the 80s got super expensive, old baseball cards. Outside of a few, they're not really that expensive anymore.
Comic books during the 90s?
Yep.
Real expensive.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously there's always going to be expensive old comics, but I mean, I remember there were so many Image comics, even soon after they were like released.
Yeah.
Like the original 10 comics of Spawn were real expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't think they're worth anything anymore.
Yeah, no, and I mean even the old stuff too. Like your
Action Comics.
Your
number
Action
one.
Comics #1, like your Fantastic Four #1. Wasn't that like Incredible Tales, or that's Spider-Man, I think.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean those will probably hold their value pretty well. But I mean even stuff from the 60s and 70s that was pricey has gone down now. Or you look at, I used to really love Star Wars figures, the old ones from the 70s and the 80s. After the new line had been out for a while, the old ones fell in price a lot. It's still expensive to buy a sealed one in the package or something, but you can get a loose figure of most of the characters from those early movies very inexpensively now.
Star Wars Chess. Sega CD Star Wars Chess by the Software Toolworks. Talk about just where did this game come from? I think I gave away a copy of that years ago. Now, $50.
Wow.
Minimum. $50. Star Wars Chess. Now, in all fairness, Star Wars Episode 7 came out recently.
Yeah.
So that probably helped.
Yeah.
But Sega CD games that were worth jack shit. Dungeon Explorer. $75.
Wow.
Right? It's kind of like a Gauntlet clone.
Yeah. That had been one I've been thinking about tracking down. I guess really? I won't.
What's the Musha sequel, Robo A List?
Well, I know that had been one that I was really thinking about getting.
I didn't want to spend $60 on it last year, and now it is $200 minimum. Last year, $140 difference in a year.
Yeah, Musha was one of those games that I really enjoyed when I played it on emulator. I was like, I'm definitely going to buy this, but I'll wait till it gets cheap.
Yeah, and you kick yourself every single time you say, I'll wait. And then it was... Now, there's a game called... this is another example of like the Cinemassacre guys, but this time it's Metal Jesus Rocks on YouTube. If you don't know Metal Jesus Rocks... Oh,
yes. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about a game. I was like, I've never heard... Yeah.
No.
He posts to Racket Boy, which I look at sometimes.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He seems like a really nice guy, and I do like his channel.
Stop making the games so expensive!
So, and there's a part of me that's like, why are you doing this? But then I realize, like, it's really not their fault. Like,
no.
But it feels like it a little bit.
It's this horrible herd mentality that we have. We're all sheep.
Yeah. So what
if the box tells us to buy something, we just buy it.
My favorite thing that Metal Jesus Rocks does is he'll do great hidden gems videos, and of course, that's when I pop some popcorn, get right there in front of the TV, and go, tell me what to buy, because that's kind of how it feels. Usually, I'm just like in my head, I'm checking off the list. I'm like, got it, and it makes me real happy to be like, got it, and then something like, I don't know, Blades of Vengeance on the Sega Genesis comes up by Electronic Arts.
Is that a hockey game?
Nope. No, it is a just grab it behind you. It's right next to Green Dog. It's the tall one in the middle. Tall one in the middle, top shelf. Yeah. So this is a side-scrolling something, right? Now, if you can tell here that this is actually a reproduction case, $7, right? Cartridge, no manual, pisses me off. Cartridge, $12. I really feel like I got the best deal going on this, right? But yeah, I got the best deal going on this, but I had to like really compromise what I like to do in collecting. Yeah. It went from being like a $20 maximum complete throwaway game. Metal Jesus Rocks did a Hidden Gems of Sega Genesis games, and the next day, either impossible to find or $140 minimum, right? The price is, again, slowly coming down, but it's like, it's going to run you about $100 to get a complete copy. There's two ways to go about this, I feel. One, stop caring, right? And part of me is definitely in that category now where I'm like, I have what I consider a really fun, pretty big collection of games that I'm happy with. I don't need everything. I'm really happy with what I've got. Or the other way to go about it, which is still a part of me, be the first one to watch the video and grab it on eBay before it goes up in price. Right? Know when these guys post their videos.
Yeah.
You know, they're on a schedule. They're on a time. So if you really are into it, then that's a possibility.
This is the without parole part of our podcast.
Yes. Yeah, gaming without parole.
Yeah, because I'll admit the spike in price has really killed my enthusiasm. I used to do. I mean, I have other things that I do now. Than I had a lot more disposable time as well when I was fresh out of college. But I mean, Little Samson is a great game.
Yeah.
Musha is a great game. I would love to own copies of them. I do not love them enough to drop $800 on.
Insane.
It's ridiculous, and you have to assume that eventually that bubble will burst. And you see with games that go up on digital distribution, it does bring the price down. Suikoden 2 had been spiraling out of control price wise. Now that it's available,
what did it get up to? Like where were the high marks for a complete copy?
I mean, for a complete copy, it was a couple $100. I think probably $200-300 for a complete copy. Again, I just was pulling their loose copies, but they had back in 2007 that was $130 for CD only.
Wow.
Where in 2015 it was under $100, so it was like $80-90.
Okay. Where's your cutoff? Like if you really want a specific game.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, it's very hard to justify $100 for a game. It tends to be whatever the original release went for. If it was a $50, $60 release game, if it's something I really want, I might spend that. I don't know. There have only been, I think there's only been one time that I ever spent triple digits on a game when I bought that was Rakugaki Showtime.
Oh yeah, you talked about this.
The PS1, Japanese PS1 cartoon arena brawler.
What's that worth these days? You've had it for a while.
Yeah, probably a lot more. I haven't actually looked it up, but that one was, and I spent just over $100. It was usually like $150 game. I got it for just over $100.
We're gonna do a quick eBay search because I am curious.
Yeah. And it's an okay game. I mean, it's fine. I enjoy it, but it was probably, if it had not been 4 a.m. and I was not exhausted on eBay.
How do you spell this?
Rakugi. No, that's Raku. Rakug. Rakugak. AKI maybe?
Okay, we're going to search for that and see if it comes up. Yep. Mint condition with spine. Do you have the spine?
Don't remember. I'd have to check the case.
Looks like about $200 you're looking at in mint condition. And that's of course, this is the asking price. But there's only one of them available.
Yeah, and I will say this is a Rakugaki Showtime is sort of an unusual incident. It's the kind of thing similar to, what was it, the Nintendo Championships or things where there was a very limited. It was a it was Treasure's only time ever working with Enix, whatever, however you pronounce that, the Dragon Quest people.
Yeah.
And there was a licensing snafu shortly after the game was released, and they all got pulled from the shelves.
Wow.
So it is, in fact, a fairly rare game, and so that takes away some of the sting with the price.
There's two places I want to go with this.
Okay.
One, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about this
'cause
part of it.
if we're trying to stick to the
and I don't really care. I don't
Yeah.
have any kind of restrictions on time. You talked about Little Samson a little bit.
Yeah.
Now I have a copy of Little Samson, but it's a reproduction.
Yeah.
And I spent $20 on it.
Yeah.
Right. What is your to be able to have a cartridge, to be able to put in your Nintendo, to be able to play it with a Nintendo controller? How do you feel about spending $25-$30 on a reproduction cart?
I mean, for me, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, I remember. For me, especially for things that are available through emulation, I feel like if I'm not getting the original, an actual original cartridge, that's what I'm willing to pay for, where a repro of something like that is just a ROM that somebody downloaded, slapped onto a donor cartridge, and is selling. So I mean, repros are cool, especially for things that never got a US release. I really like the idea of repros.
US translations.
For English translations of obscure RPGs. We've talked about that a little bit even.
Right.
But for repros of games that exist in an actual form, I just can never justify it, because I'll just download it and play it on an emulator. I bought a GP2X a couple of years ago, and I can play everything on a little tiny Game Boy Advance sized handheld. So
I recently picked up a Retro Freak, which is sort of like a Retron 5.
Okay.
But it actually plays TurboGrafx and PC Engine games.
Oh, nice.
Along with Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Nintendo. No, actually not Nintendo. There's an adapter for that. Coming soon also, a Game Gear adapter. It's exciting. But it does play Sega Genesis and Master System and like pretty much almost everything you can think of. More importantly, unlike the Retron 5, it has an SD slot in the back where you can just dump every ROM you've ever downloaded into the system.
Nice.
And then it also has ports for every controller ever made.
Nice.
So if you do want to play ROMs, you have easy ways of doing that without spending a fortune.
Yeah. I found a oh gosh, I'm gonna forget the name, but it's I believe it was made by RetroZone, one of their SNES cartridges that you can put a large memory card in, and you can play everything right off of a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, what are is that the same thing as an Everdrive?
No, it's not. Well, it's similar. It's very similar, but it's not called that. I forget what they're called. Sorry. You can put the
No, you're not paying us either. Sorry.
Those are pretty neat. I got one of those secondhand, and I've enjoyed that.
So the other place I wanted to go with this after reproductions is I was texting you the other morning about Limited Run Games, one of many different websites who creates physical versions of digital games, but does a limited print run. This happened a few years ago with, a few years ago with Retro City Rampage DX.
Yeah. That
came out on Vita and PS4, and with such limited numbers.
Yeah, that's very expensive now.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Good, glad to hear that. If anyone wants to buy my sealed copy. I'm pointing to my copy now. So, what are your feelings? Like, so I was texting you about Oddworld New and Tasty.
Yeah.
And
which I did end up. I caved in and bought that.
You bought the Vita version, I'm guessing.
I wanted to buy the Vita version. Already gone by the time I got there.
Really?
Yeah. So I bought the PS4 version.
Cool. So what are your feelings on basically creating a shortage of games before they're even made?
Well, I mean,
this plays into our collector mentality.
Yeah, I mean, I like any situation and any company that's going to take the time to, legally produce physical copies of. I mean, because this isn't like they're not pirating these. Like they're working with the publisher and, the developer to bring these out. I'm always in support of any company that's going to go the extra mile to make nice physical versions, because I still, I'll download games. I've been buying a lot from Good Old Games and the Humble Store. Always the DRM free stuff. But I like having physical copies. So I'm always in favor of that. And I would assume for these companies, it's not like they're making them rare to be jerks. I mean, they're doing it because they're a tiny, tiny little company, and it would be commercially unsound of them to create a huge...
But we're talking about, and not just to... I'm kind of playing contrarian corner here, but these print runs are like 2,500 each. Like, they know they could sell 5,000. They know they could sell 10,000. The name of this company specifically is Limited Run Games. So, I mean, do you think that the limited printing of these games is part of the appeal?
Oh, certainly. I mean, I would assume that on some level they're limiting it because they know it'll sell out if it's more limited versus, but it's also a financially sound decision for them to make too.
They're not just pulling these numbers out of the air.
Right.
They're saying what's going to make financial sense for us, what's going to make us the most amount of money.
Right. This isn't like Nintendo intentionally limiting, hardware or amiibos or that, this is something that they've done a lot over the years. This is some tiny company that's doing it because, they think they can make some money and they're excited about physical releases of games. So, because they have definitely, somebody was telling me, I looked this up a little bit when you were telling me about the new and tasty, because I was thinking like, well, do I really want this now? I'm not I like Abe's Odyssey in theory, but the more that I read, they were talking about how back in some of their earlier releases, there wasn't a limit on how many people could buy. So scalpers just came in and were like, boom, gone, buy everything. Where now, I think it's limited to one per system per buyer. Yes. And that tells me they are targeting collectors as opposed to, they just want to dump all this stuff on a scalper that's going to jack up the price.
Yeah.
So
that kind of stuff makes me real happy, you know, because these games, the second they sell out, and they're cheap.
Yeah,
they're not charging $60 for these things. They're charging like what, $25 for the Vita, $30
something
for
like
the
that. Yeah,
PS4. They're not expensive.
No,
and the moment they sell out, they're $100 on eBay.
Yeah.
So I really definitely respect that there are companies out there doing this. Especially for people like us who, digital's fine.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather have.
Yeah.
And I already have the digital version of this game. So that means my Vita and PS4 versions of this game are going to stay in the shrink wrap and just, kind of stroke my collector mentality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be like, okay, at least they're worth something.
Yeah. No, I like this kind of stuff, even if it can be a little sticky sometimes. It seems like this company knows what they're doing and they're appealing to collectors.
And I know I've taken the role of host I'm asking you questions. When you see a game, like, say, Snatcher. Snatcher is a $500 game now, right? Burning Rangers is a $400 game now.
I used to have 2 copies of Snatcher.
How many do you have now?
1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what does that do for you when you look at your stuff now? It's because...
I think I've told this story like 3 times on this podcast, but I'm going to tell it again.
And I do have one story before we call it quits.
Yeah, I actually, I get, it makes me nervous when I see my games get that expensive, because I think to myself, if something ever like if there's a fire in my house or I get robbed or something, these ain't coming back. Yeah. Like that's the end. There's no way. I mean, on some level, it's kind of exciting when you told me Burning Rangers was so expensive, because I don't. Really...
You and I were talking about me buying it from you.
Yeah, it's not a
year ago when it was $100.
It's not a great game.
It's all right.
I mean, it's okay, but I've been thinking to myself since you told me that, like, oh, I've got like a $400 buffer now. If I ever lose my job, I can stay afloat for a little while.
Do you ever think before this bubble bursts, before this economic bubble bursts that you're talking about? Maybe it's just time to purge. Maybe it's time to get rid of everything. Put a few $1,000s in the bank and be happy with what you got.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that every once in a while. The unfortunate reality is that most of the really expensive games are that way because they're pretty good. I mean, not everything is a Burning Ranger. Like what is it? Like Suikoden 2, the standard super expensive game. That's a great RPG. Yeah. Earthbound. That's also one of like my favorite games.
You can play all these through an emulator.
That is true. That is true.
Okay, we got to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Are we running out of batteries?
We're running out of something. We're flashing.
All right.
All right, guys. So, yes. Wrap it up.
All right, so I'm closing the show. No recommendations. Sorry, make up your own mind.
Next week we'll have plenty of recommendations.
All right, yeah. This has been Gaming Without Parole, and I'm Mike Zeller.
And I'm Bryan Paul.
And see you next week.